Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Always and Forever by Kimberly Thomas, narrated by Faye. Prologue. 1 year ago. I don't understand. What does that mean? Erin stared at the woman across from her. The woman sighed deeply before leaning forward and clasping her hands on the desk. Her pursed lips and remorseful brown eyes sent a shiver down Erin's spine that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. When ovaries stop producing eggs normally before the age of 40, it is referred to as primary ovarian insufficiency. When this occurs, your ovaries stop releasing eggs regularly or have abnormally low levels of the hormone estrogen, and it primarily leads to infertility. I'm so sorry, Erin. I know this isn't easy to digest, but in today's society you have many options available. Are you saying I can't have my own baby? Erin asked, anchoring her blue gaze on the woman. She gripped her thighs tightly, her fingernails fighting her cotton skirt to make contact with her skin. That's right, her doctor confirmed, as her lips drew into a regretful line. No treatment has been able to restore fertility. She finished driving the nail more profoundly into the coffin her first round of words had initiated. Erin collapsed against the chair. Her eyes drew shut on the tears that pooled at the corners, and her lips quivered. I know it's difficult news to swallow, but it becomes bearable with treatment of estrogen deficiency and support, the doctor advised. Erin's head bobbed with a few short nods. How could this have happened? A sob escaped her lips. She slowly righted herself in the chair and set her blurry vision on the woman. What did I do wrong, Dr. Stabler? I just came here because I was worried about my irregularities. And now you're telling me I can't have children? I must have done something wrong. Her voice cracked as the tears flowed down her cheeks and splashed her skirt. Dr. Stabler pushed out of her chair and rounded the desk. Placing a hand on Erin's shoulder, she leaned down until they were at eye level. You did nothing wrong, she assured Erin, her tone soft and comforting. This is a biological phenomenon that we're working hard to find a way to reverse. It could have happened to anyone. But it happened to me, Erin sighed. It did, Dr. Stabler agreed. But this is not the end of your life, and I don't want you thinking that way. She straightened up and pulled her white coat closer around her frame as she folded her arms across her chest. I have the number for someone I believe will help you. She handed Erin a card. Erin stared at the card for a minute before she raised determined blue eyes to the woman. I know you're trying to help me, Dr. Stabler, but I'm not seeing a shrink, she said with finality. Erin put her hand up, halting the woman's words. I have to go. She rose to her feet and grabbed her handbag off the small sofa in the corner of the room. I'll see you, Dr. Stabler. She turned the doorknob and yanked the door open. But before she could step through it, the doctor's words stopped her in her tracks. You need to tell your boyfriend, and do it soon. She turned to the woman, her lips set in a grim line. I'll tell him, she said through clenched teeth. Dr. Stabler looked at her for a long time, her gaze assessing. Erin stared right back with determination. Finally, the woman averted her eyes, and her shoulders slightly deflated. I'm only trying to help you, Erin. At this, Erin's own shoulders dropped, and she released another tired sigh. I know, she said simply. I have to go. She turned and left the office. Exiting the building, Erin beelined for her car and slumped against it as hot tears stained her cheeks. It felt as if her whole life was crumbling around her, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. First, she found out her father had cheated on her mother for God knows how long, and with their housekeeper. and they were now getting a divorce. Then she was looked over for the job at the ad agency after being told she was the best intern they'd had in years. She guessed being the boss's niece pulled more weight than being the best. And now she found out she couldn't have children, at least not naturally. Maybe it was all a sign. The phone vibrating in her bag interrupted her thoughts. She brought the small device out, and her heart hammered when she saw the caller. She used her palms to wipe away the tears as she straightened up. "Hey," she answered, her tone as light as she could muster. She closed her eyes as she listened. "I'm fine. Dr. Stabler says everything's fine." She gulped and clutched the strap of her bag tightly, her knuckles turning white. "I said I'm fine, Brian. I'm just a little hoarse. It's no big deal." She listened to Brian on the other end before replying once more. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to snap at you." Erin sighed, rubbing the tension from her forehead. "I'm stopping by the supermarket to pick up a few things. I'll see you at home in a little bit." After disconnecting the call, Erin drew in a deep breath and slowly released it. Sliding into her car, she drove out of the parking lot and away from the hospital. Her grumbling tummy reminded her that she hadn't eaten in the morning, and it was late afternoon. After 10 minutes of traveling along Central Avenue, she spotted a small restaurant a few feet ahead, just after the stoplight. Erin pulled off the main road and parked her car in one of the available spaces. Then she walked up the few steps that led directly to the entrance. As soon as she stepped into the establishment, she felt as if she'd been transported to the retro 50s, a time of floral wallpaper, checkered floors, jukeboxes, and vinyl records. Guests were seated on the long lunch counter's high stools, munching away on the food before them, some conversing. A waitress who looked to be in her 20s stood behind the counter, pouring water from a pitcher. She suddenly burst into laughter because of the gentleman directly across from her, sporting a goofy grin. A few patrons looked in their direction, but the two seemed oblivious to the stares. Erin averted her gaze to take in the rest of the establishment. Red leatherette booths were parked along the other side of the room, facing the parking lot, and on the tables stood salt and pepper shakers and what looked like Tabasco sauce. Quite a few of the booths were occupied already. She headed for the empty booth in the back and sat. Then, noticing the menu on the table, she took it up to peruse. "Hi, welcome to the Silver Spoon. I'm Betty. What can I get you?" Erin looked up to see a woman who appeared to be in her late 50s, smiling down at her. Her big curly blonde hair resembled that of the singer Dolly Parton, but her kind brown eyes reminded her so much of Grandma Becky's. "Hi, I'm not sure what to get." She grinned sheepishly at her. "Well, I could recommend something for you if you'd like," Betty returned. "I would, thank you." Erin inclined her head in acknowledgement. "Great! I'll have our cook whip up the special for you then," Betty chirped, writing on the small notepad in her hand. "What's the special?" Erin asked. "It's a surprise, but I promise you won't be disappointed," Betty replied with another warm smile. "In the meantime, let me get you a sweet tea." She turned on her heels and headed toward the lunch counter before opening the latch and walking through the low door at the side. Erin watched as she tore the page from the book and slid it through the tiny window. She said a few words to whoever was on the other side before she grabbed a glass and a pitcher. "Here you are, honey. This is sure to perk you right on up," Betty said, placing the glass on the table and pouring the dark-colored liquid until the glass was almost filled to the brim. Then she stood back with an expectant look. Erin tentatively brought the glass to her lips and took a sip. The chilled, sweet, tangy taste of the herbal beverage was pleasant, and Erin found herself taking a few more sips before placing the glass back on the table. "I knew you'd like it," Betty beamed proudly. Erin gave the woman a shy look. "It is nice," she agreed. "I tasted some kind of fruit essence. What is it?" "It's a secret recipe, and I'm not supposed to tell anyone," Betty leaned in to say softly. Oh, okay, Erin replied, a little disappointed. But I'll make an exception for you. My gut's telling me I can trust you with this, Betty said after a beat. Erin simply smiled and waited. It's peach and raspberry. First, I brew the tea in sweetened water. Then I place a few slices of peach and some raspberries and let them steep for a while. Wow, I didn't know making tea could be such an art, Erin marveled. Well, we Southerners love us some sweet tea. It's our favorite pastime. Betty beamed. Erin nodded. Now she understood why the woman's accent was so distinct. Erin followed the woman's gaze to see a couple a few seats away, motioning to her. I'll be back in a few. I need to check on a few customers. Your food will be ready shortly. Erin inclined her head and reached for the sweet tea as Betty left to tend to the other customers. After finishing half of what was left in the glass, she stared at the brown liquid. It wasn't opaque, but it felt like a dark abyss pulling her down into a realm of despair. Her thoughts transported back to Dr. Stabler's office, and the words spoken with such finality hit her with the force of a ton. A sob burst through her lips. Panicked, she looked around to make sure no one had heard her. Everyone seemed unaware of her distress. Erin bowed her head, allowing her long blonde hair to form a curtain around her face, blocking the tears streaming down it. Are you all right, honey? Erin frantically wiped her tears, but when she looked up and saw Betty's brown eyes staring back at her with concern, she couldn't help the tears that burst through the dam. Her head nestled in her folded arms on the table as she silently cried. The slight movement to her right and the squelching of the leather chair told her Betty had sat beside her. The next thing she knew, the woman was patting her back comfortingly. When Erin finally stopped crying, she turned her head to see Betty looking worried. Want to talk about it? She gently coaxed. Erin sat up straight with a sigh, looking at the brown liquid again. I think my life is over, she spoke gloomily. Why do you say that? Betty asked. Erin didn't answer immediately. She couldn't. To say the words out loud to someone will make them true. Betty reached over and rested a comforting hand on her clasped ones. Erin looked over into her caring brown eyes. Sometimes the only way to get clarity is to talk to someone. It may help that this person is a stranger, someone you probably won't ever see again, Betty encouraged. Gulping down her fear, Erin finally opened her mouth. I just learned that I can't have children, but my boyfriend wants kids so badly. He's already started planning out our lives after we get married, with our 4 kids and a brownstone, and I know if I tell him this, it will devastate him. But on the other hand, I also don't know if I want to spend the rest of my life with him, and this was before I got this news. I know if I leave him now, he won't take it well, but... She sighed dejectedly. Honey, listen to me. Erin turned to look at Betty, now looking at her thoughtfully. You must do what's best for you, no one else. If that doesn't include a future with your boyfriend, then so be it. Betty pressed. Erin nodded slowly as a lump formed in her throat. I also have to warn you that sometimes what we think is best for us isn't, Betty said solemnly. What do you mean? Erin asked, her brows scrunched together. Betty's lips pursed together as she took on a faraway, melancholy look. It was the first Erin had seen her look so void of cheer since she met her. Betty pinned Erin with a serious stare. You can also risk losing what you needed, not realizing it was right in front of you all along. A shiver ran down Erin's spine at the thought. You should take time away from everything to decide what's best for you. I also want you to know that it takes a strong and brave person to do what's best for them, especially if it's the hardest decision you'll ever have to make. Being okay with your choice will take a lot of work. Betty squeezed her hand before sliding out of the booth. I'm going to get your order. I'm sure it's ready. Erin gave the woman a grateful smile as she watched her go. But unfortunately, the smile slipped as soon as Betty turned her back. She was right. It did take a lot of bravery to do what she was going to do, and this conversation only made it more pertinent that she had to do it. She had to break up with Brian. Chapter 1.
Okay, what do you have for me?
The creative director and Erin's boss asked. Designs from the new campaign are trending on all social media platforms, and the numbers are favorable. Online and store sales are trending upward, especially for our origami folds, floral prints, and handcrafted pieces. In addition, the web traffic from our influencer marketing campaign is up by 10%. In conclusion, Saint International is doing very well. Erin balanced the phone between her head and shoulder while twirling the cord with her index finger. Her chair swiveled from side to side as she stared at the analytical data projecting from her computer screen.
That's all music to my ears. Great job, Erin. Your visionary outlook on our marketing campaign and analysis of the data trends is phenomenal. You are an asset to us.
Thank you, sir. Erin grinned proudly.
What did I say about calling me sir?
The man questioned. I'm sorry, sir. I mean, Archie. Her eyes squeezed shut as she cringed.
Much better. I know you've only been here for a few months, but you're already an invaluable member of this team. And at Saint, we're a family.
I appreciate that, Archie, and thank you so much for this job. I know I wasn't the best candidate, considering I didn't have a background in fashion, but I'm glad you chose to take a chance on me.
Erin, you're a natural even without a fashion background. I would have been mad not to have hired you. Your fresh insights and your determined nature have paid off in more ways than one for us.
Her boss complimented. Erin felt her cheeks warm, and a broad smile tipped her lips upward.
The position of Chief Marketing Analyst for our Tokyo branch will be available soon. If you keep up the good work, I'll recommend you to Mark. That's if you want it.
Erin's heart thumped with excitement at the news that she could get to live and work in Tokyo. Of course, she hadn't put much thought into living elsewhere than the U.S. Still, Archie dangling the possibility before her had her imagining herself walking through fields of cherry blossoms, eating soba and drinking sake, all in a kimono, was enough to pique her interest.
Hello? Erin?
Erin blinked and shook her head to clear her thoughts. I'm here, she responded.
Okay, would you be interested in moving out to Tokyo?
Her boss asked. It sounds like a wonderful opportunity, Archie. I'm on the tip to say yes, but can I get a few days to think about it?
Sure thing. No pressure. Just let me know as soon as you've made a decision, and I'll talk to Mark, he assured her.
Thanks, Archie. Erin smiled appreciatively, even though her boss couldn't see her.
No problem. When I get back, we need to discuss the campaign for the Teen Vogue issue coming up. I need to have a team meeting with the other analysts, and we can brainstorm.
Okay, I have a few ideas, Erin informed him.
Great. We'll work through them when I get back.
All right, sure thing.
Goodbye, Erin.
Bye, Archie. Erin pushed away from her desk and walked over to the floor-to-ceiling glass windows that took up the entire east wall of her office. Skyscrapers as tall as or towering over her building perpetuated the Manhattan skyline. True to its nature and fame, the Empire State Building stood regally in the middle of downtown. At nighttime, it came alive with lights running from its base to its antennae summit, and surrounded by the other buildings that seemed to be paying homage to its brilliance. It was like a beautiful yet complex matrix. Manhattan was a great place to live, but it was also a bustling city where everyone was always rushing. There was a knock at her door. Erin turned in time to see Greg, the lead photographer, entering her office.
Hey, Erin, did you talk to Archie? I've been trying to call him for the past hour, but it keeps going to voicemail.
I did, she replied. He's happy with the numbers and wants the team to brainstorm ideas for the Vogue issue.
Sweet,
Greg exclaimed, rubbing his hands together.
I can't wait for this feature. To finally have my name added to a piece.
He raised his hands, with his indexes and thumbs at right angles, as he took on a faraway look.
I can see it now. The quintessential Greg Duaney has done it again. His work is nothing short of spectacular.
He dramatically flipped the scarf hanging loosely around his neck. Erin shook with laughter at his fantastical display.
They'll talk about you, all right, but it'll be for an entirely different reason, she snickered. As long as they're talking, I don't mind, he countered with a grin.
Erin shook her head. Leave it to Greg to find pleasure in any press as long as it involved him. She wouldn't call him conceited, but he was pretty close to it. She looked at his perfectly coiffed blonde hair, the expensively tailored gray suit that clung to his body like armor, his brand-name shoes, and his all-American smirk as he stared at her. He didn't dress like the other fashion photographers she'd met.
Yup, you are definitely on an ego trip, she thought. I'm going to lunch in 15 minutes. Care to join me?
Erin blinked in surprise. All the time she'd worked at Saint, he'd never invited her to lunch with him. He didn't even hang with the team, who usually stayed in the office and had their food delivered from the deli on Park Avenue.
I'm having lunch later on today, she explained. What time? I'll wait.
Erin fought to keep her mouth from hanging open. Why did he have a sudden interest in having lunch with her, of all people? Did you want to discuss anything about the upcoming shoot? Because I have a little time now. She looked at her watch, playing it cool.
No, I just wanted to have lunch with you, Greg said pointedly.
Oh, Erin replied, dumbfounded. A few seconds passed before she was able to collect her thoughts. She returned to her desk and stood behind it. I don't think that's such a great idea, she said lowly.
Why? Are you dating someone?
He asked, moving closer to her. Erin averted her gaze. I'm not dating, and I'm not looking to date anytime soon. I just came out of a long relationship. Right now, I'm just trying to appreciate this time by myself, she explained, staring at her hand now resting on the desk.
Who said I was asking you out on a date?
Erin's eyes found his this time as her brows scrunched together in confusion. Then why did you?
I asked if you were dating because of how jumpy you got by me suggesting we have lunch. I figured you're trying to protect me from a jealous boyfriend or something.
Greg shrugged nonchalantly.
Look, I was just happy that everything's going great for us and thought it was a good idea to extend a lunch invitation to you. If you're worried that I'm trying to get close to you, I'll invite Cindy. I just wanted to celebrate and I don't want to do it alone.
Erin's cheeks reddened. Her head fell into her chest as embarrassment shrouded her like a blanket. She had misinterpreted his intentions because she'd been so fixated on not getting into a relationship with anyone. She could hit herself over the head with a bat for not realizing it was a friendly gesture. Greg, I'm sorry for overthinking it. And yes, I would love to go to lunch with you to celebrate this win. She smiled conciliatorily.
It's fine.
He grinned reassuringly.
Should I go invite Cindy?
He asked, looking over his shoulder to the door before bringing his gaze back to her. No, she blurted. I mean, I don't think that'll be necessary. She beamed. She cringed at the idea of Cindy tagging along. Compared to Greg, Cindy was a megalomaniac, and Erin was sure the woman would find some way to make the conversations all about her. Just thinking about her made a nerve throb at Erin's temple.
Okay, no Cindy then.
Greg gave her a pursed smirk.
What time do you want to go?
He asked. I'm free in a half hour, she revealed.
All right, I'll see you in a half hour,
he returned, then headed for the door. Erin released a tired sigh as she dropped into her chair. Resting her head against the rim, she stared unseeingly at the white roof. She told Greg she needed a half hour because she needed a breather to center her thoughts. In less than a minute, her eyes dropped shut, and she was out. The ringtone on her phone brought her out of her nap. She rummaged through her top drawer until she found the small device. Hello? She answered on the third ring.
Hi.
Erin straightened in her seat as her heart drummed wildly inside her ribcage. Hi, Brian, she stammered. She'd spoken to him less than 2 weeks ago. That had been when he'd called to offer his condolences after her grandmother had passed as a result of her ALS. Still, hearing his voice at the other end was like hearing it for the first time in months, rather than just 2 weeks ago. Hi, he repeated. How are you? He asked after a short pause. I'm okay, I guess. She stood to her feet and walked over to the window. One hand circled her waist, while the other held the phone against her ear. I want you to know that I would have been there for Becky's funeral, but I didn't want to intrude. I wanted to give you your space, but I thought about you and the family the whole time. He spoke seriously. I know, Erin said, her shoulders drooping as the thought of her grandmother weighed heavily on her. It had only been 2 weeks since they buried her, and the pain was still fresh for her. She was sure it was the same for the rest of the family, but at least they had each other to lean on. I'm honestly thankful to hear that you still care. She squinted at the specks that looked like long lines of ants, but were actually vehicles traversing the George Washington Bridge. I'll always care about you, Erin. Nothing will ever change that, he said with sincerity. A tear slipped down her cheek. With everything that was going right in her life, it still felt as if most things were still going wrong. From losing her grandmother to her strained relationship with her sister and the non-existent one with her father, coupled with her breaking up with Brian 3 months ago, it felt as if she was eons away from her life ever being right again. Thanks, Brian, she spoke softly. There was another pause before Brian spoke. Erin, her pulse quickened as she waited with bated breath for him to finish. I'm here for you if you ever want to talk. Her heart sank to the floor of her chest. Oh, okay, thanks. She was disappointed, even though she knew she had no right to be. There was a soft knock on her door before Greg's head popped through it. Hey, you ready to go? Give me a few minutes, Greg. I'll meet you in the lobby, she told him. Greg gave her a thumbs up and popped back out of her office. Who's Greg? Brian asked, his tone tense. He's a colleague, Erin rushed to explain. So you're going somewhere with him? We're heading to lunch to celebrate the business's success. Drawing up short when she realized she was explaining to appease him, she said, Look, Brian, I don't need to explain to you what I'm doing or whom I'm doing it with. We're not together anymore, remember? I know, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. He sighed dejectedly. I gotta go. We can talk some other time. All right. Bye, Erin. Bye, Brian. She held the phone against her ear for a few seconds after the call had been disconnected. It felt as if she was breaking his heart all over again. Guilt washed over her like a waterfall. She placed the phone in her handbag and headed for the lobby. Chapter 2. So, what do you think? Erin stared at the canvas prints set up before her. There was a total of 7, all unique in theme but connected. They all showed a young woman at various stages of development. The color palette of her clothing transitioned from bold pink to bright blue and culminated in an amalgamation of all the colors in the last photo. The common denominator in all the photos was that the family surrounded her, and although the image didn't focus on the faces, she could see they were all smiling. Wow, these are great, Greg, she expressed, looking over her shoulder at the man who stared back at her anxiously. At her cheerful words, his face brightened. I think Archie will love them. I hope so. I spent all week developing them, Greg replied, walking over to stand beside her. He will, she answered with a reassuring smile. Erin's eyes widened in surprise when Greg's hand rounded her shoulders and pulled her into his side. Her head snapped to look at him. Thanks. He smiled sincerely at her, oblivious to her discomfort. However, she relaxed at his lack of awareness, allowing the embrace. Since their first lunch meeting over a week ago.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?